Hey, everybody. Welcome to Spill the Milk Breastfeeding Podcast, created by me, Nicki. I'm a registered nurse. More importantly, I'm a board certified lactation consultant with over 20 years' experience helping moms and babes. Today, we're going to talk about preparing to go back to work. Because of you, this was your choice. We did a poll, and this is the one that got picked as the one everyone wants me to cover the most. And my heart goes out to you. Returning to work, just the anxiety, the amount of pressure that you must feel in this moment is not easy. But we're going to cover some things in this podcast. The first thing we're going to kind of go over is, when do you really actually need to start pumping to return to work? How much milk do you need on a daily basis when you do return to work? Practicing with the bottle, and also just kind of understanding you don't need to overdo it. We don't need you to have a huge freezer stash. Remember, that's oversupply and can be dangerous. So let's hop right in and let's talk about this. I usually have my moms start pumping at or around 4 weeks. Now, I teach this very in depth in my class called responsive pumping, but I'm going to touch on it with you here. So, at or around 4 weeks, about an hour and a half after the first morning breastfeeding session, I have moms pump. Now, this already sounds tricky, and it's because it is. Because what if your baby's hungry right after you get done pumping? I'm going to tell you this. You're going to probably and likely sit for a couple of days cluster feeding when you're going through this process just to get a little milk set aside. Okay. Your baby might decide, okay, now I'm hungry. And you're like, oh, I just pumped. What do I do? Put baby to breast. Put baby to breast with the understanding that cluster feeding is going to help you in both areas. One, it's going to feed your baby, of course, but two, that baby is going to help you bring more milk so that as you grow in this pumping part, this 1 hour, 1.5 hour after the morning session, your baby is going to help you grow that supply by cluster feeding. So this needs to happen, and it's vital. Now, other moms have done this many different ways, and I want you to understand you can do that too. You can pump after an hour and a half and then just give your baby the bottle, because you need to start practicing giving bottles at or around 4 weeks. The reason that I think this gets a little out of control is because once you start adding up just exactly what you're going to have before you go back to work, you may decide, you know what, I'm not going to do that every day. I am just going to pump my residual milk from the first morning. And that's an option too, pumping right after the first morning feed. Because again, it's all based on where are you at in your anxiety talking brain versus what do you actually need, and exploring those options. So here's what I want you to know. There's no exact science for this. I personally would like it if moms were just a couple of days ahead and only grabbing milk out of the refrigerator. I think it truly helps. And if you want more information on this, go back and watch my podcast or listen to my podcast on the freezer stash. But for just now being sake, we're going to talk about this. About an hour and a half after the first morning breastfeeding session, you're going to pump. You've got to pump correctly, you guys. I talk about this a ton. It's called responsive pumping. I want you to treat your pump as if it was a baby. And you're going to have to push buttons on your pump to make it act like a baby. Remember, pumping is tricking your body to think there's a baby there. And so we have to do this in the same manner that baby would. So when you hook up to your pump, you're going to be in stimulation mode. Those are those fast quiver suckles. Okay. Those ones that don't have a lot of tugs, but it's just kind of busy work, maybe with a little suction. That is a stimulation. That is stimulating your breast to make them aware oxytocin. Let's go. Let's make some milk. Let's let down. After some stimulation, we're not timing anything, but once you see an increase in flow, you are immediately going to go to expression mode, and you're going to stay in expression mode. Expression mode is those longer, harder pulls on your pump. That is exactly what a baby does. A baby goes to breast, they stimulate, they get a letdown, they go to the longer, harder pulls. Suck, swallow, breathe, suck, swallow, breathe. Then, when the letdown isn't really happening and they're just getting some drips, they go back and they stimulate. Boo bugger is what I call it. Stimulate till they get another letdown. Then they pull that out and pull it out and pull it out and pull it out, pull it out. And This is exactly the same as the first time you had a letdown, but the second letdown may not look as good as the first one because the first one's letdown is milk that has been sitting there for a little while and has some pressure behind it. So just remember with every increase in flow, so you do the stimulation, then there's an increase in flow, you're going to go to expression mode. You don't see milk coming out, perfect. Go back to stimulation mode, bug your boob to have another letdown. Once you see an increase in flow, that may just be heavy drops, but once you see more, you're going to go to expression mode. Then once you see little to no milk coming out, super simple, back to stimulation mode. Now, I need to say this with a word of caution. Some of you, it may take a little while to get that third letdown, and some of you may not just get it at all, and that's okay. But we want to end in stimulation mode. So if you get the third letdown, then I want you to ask for a fourth. If you're not seeing anything come out after about a minute or two, then stop. Always end in stimulation mode. With that being said, there's so much more to say about pumping. So go grab my responsive pumping class so you can learn more and be more in tune with what's going on with your body. The other thing I definitely want to cover is I don't want you over pumping at this point. I know you think that sounds crazy, but I need you to listen up. 2 to 4 ounces total combined, whether that's 1 and 2, 2 and 2, 1 and 3, whatever it is. Total combined, that's the average amount you pump to replace a feed. Replacing a feed is it's been 90 minutes or more since the last removal of milk from your baby or your pump. That's it. I don't want you pumping more than that. I want you to know, hey, 2 to 4 ounces is safe. This is what I'm going to get. Now, in those first couple of weeks of you doing this first of the morning pump, you may not get the same amount early on as you're going to get later. Later, you may get more. Remember, we're conditioning our body. But let's think about this in a manner or a contextual manner. And so this part is all about mapping out how much milk you actually need. This might put you in check a little bit when you start thinking about, do I really need to pump every day starting at 4 weeks? Or could it just be once a day? Or could I just do residual milk? The choice is yours. I'm just giving you the information. So you're going to map out about how much milk you're going to need in a day. So how do we do that? Well, we know the studies tell us it's an ounce to an ounce and a half an hour. If you're gone for an 8-hour day, 8 to 12 ounces is all your baby should need. So let me throw this back at you now. So now in that first week that you were pumping and you were getting 2 ounces each time, that's 14 ounces in 1 week. That's a whole day's worth of breast milk that your baby needs. It's more than a whole day. So how much do you really need to do is the question. Because if you start this after the first morning feed pump and you're consistently getting 2 ounces, in 2 weeks, you're going to have 28 ounces. And you guys can do 4 weeks, you're going to have 48. You guys can do that math. Figure out how much milk you need. And you don't have to always pump an hour and a half after the feed. If you want to pump right after a feed and just start collecting some residual milk just to have set aside, that's great too. I completely think that's a even better option for most moms. But there's a lot of moms who heavily, heavily, heavily rely on a quote freezer stash to make them feel better, even though they may never use it. You also have to remember when you're mapping out how much milk you're going to need, that the day that you feed your baby that 8 to 12 ounces, you're going to pump to replace that. You're going to pump that day. So it's not this, you gave it to the baby and now you're losing supply. That's not what it is. You are going to pump to replace that. So again, I go back to the question, how much milk do you really need to get started to go back to work? You've got to find your number. You get to do that. That's the glory of this, is you get to do that. But then you have to remember, oversupply can be dangerous, and we need to avoid it at all costs. There are those of you who have natural oversupply. I get it. But still, I want you to go back and realize, do I need to pump for 15 minutes and get 6 ounces? Or can I pump for 10 and get 4? Because 4 is the max average your baby's ever going to need with breast milk and being back at daycare. But remember, this is all about you. So check yourself, check your numbers, sit down and really think about how you want this journey to look. Okay. Some things I need you to keep in mind, and these are some really helpful tips that I think a lot of times get skipped over, but we want you using your oldest milk first. Some of you create this big stash in your freezer and you never touch it. Well, what happens when you need to start touching it? Or if you want to start touching it, you're scared to touch it. Oldest milk first. Go in there and grab your oldest milk, and that's what baby gets and receives the next day at daycare. Also, this is a big one. You guys, you've got to get that bottle started. This is huge. When you start that pumping process at 4 weeks, you've got to get the bottle started. All right, we're going to cover this, starting the bottle. And I'm going to give you some little tips and tricks on starting the bottle. Usually, those babies in the first 6 weeks are very able to transition back and forth seamlessly. They'll take a bottle almost the first time it's tried for them. If not, I'm going to give you some tricks. So at or around 4 weeks, you want to start a bottle. I don't want you to do the bottle just one time that week. I need you to consistently do the bottle, which means once a day. You're going to pump once a day, you can bottle once a day. Same thing, because we want to keep baby familiar with that bottle. And we want to keep baby knowing that, hey, there's a bottle involved here too. I always tell moms to stay on the once a day track for the first 2 weeks. Then after that, you can likely go to every other day with a bottle. But we really need to get focused on that bottle. Now, if your baby is one of those babies that is a little stubborn with the bottle, here's what I want to tell you. You're a breastfeeder. It's okay. So grab that bottle, put a 1/2 ounce of breast milk in it, okay? And in between feeds, when your baby's not hungry, sneak it in there. Help them realize milk comes from somewhere else without having the stress of them being hungry and screaming and crying, okay? So 1/2 ounce in between feeds. If your baby's very, very, very stubborn, I want you to do this 5 to 6 times a day. A 1/2 ounce in between feeds, 5 to 6 times a day. Stop changing the bottle out. It's not the bottle. Your baby just needs to learn something new. Okay? 5 to 6 times a day until your baby gets the hang of it. And then you can move to 1 feed a day and go back to 1 feed a day once every day for 2 weeks and then move out of there. Babies can struggle to take the bottle. And that doesn't mean we change out the bottle. That means we keep doing the same bottle because, again, consistency and teaching your baby to get used to something new is going to be helpful. Okay. Now, here's probably my best piece of advice for those that first day back to work, because you're not going to know what to expect. Your baby's going to be away from you. You're going to be worried about the milk that you sent. How's your baby taking it? How's the baby doing? My favorite thing I have moms do, I call them dry runs. I have you practice with your baby. So you pick a day. Hopefully it's a day someone can help you. And you pretend to be at work. You go pump when you would normally pump at work, and someone else feeds your baby the bottle. I really like it if you can do a couple of these days, because that data that you're going to get is going to help you know what to expect when you return to work. And having that is going to make that return to work a lot easier. Another thing moms struggle with in the beginning when they return to work is some moms notice they're just not pumping as much as what they thought they should be. Take a deep breath. This is brand new to you. Anything new is going to cause a little difficulty in the beginning. I like moms going back to work knowing I'm probably not going to pump as much as I will over the next 2 weeks for the first little bit of time, because all of this is new. You don't have your baby. You're not around your baby. You're away from your baby. And your baby, their cries help you have letdowns, their coos, their warm bodies, all those things. So pumping those first couple of weeks, you don't get to cast judgment on yourself for that. What you get to do is you get to understand this is new to your body and new to your brain. But after about 2 weeks of getting in that flow of returning to work and doing those things, you're going to have a better grip on what's going on because you've been in it for a while and you've been working it for a while. And so what you need to understand is you need to give yourself grace. You need to give yourself understanding, and you need to take some deep breaths. Sending your baby off to daycare, having to go back to work, all of those things are things that I wish I would never have to work on you with. And unfortunately, it's something that I work on with moms a ton. So I just want you to know that you're doing an amazing job. And I hope that some of this has helped you prepare for those days ahead when you go back to work. The dry runs are super duper important. They're going to help you on those days that you are preparing to go back to work. They're going to help you on your first day back to work because you know what it looks like when you're pumping and your baby's eating a bottle. Mapping out how much milk you truly are going to need when you return to work. And then starting your pumping process at some point in that journey. But you don't have to do it to the extreme like most people think. You could just pump an ounce a day. But if you're like, no, 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 I want to do this. I want to pump an hour after each hour and a half after each feed. Go ahead. But remember, 2 to 4 ounces. That's all. We don't need more than that. Hope this helps you guys. Thanks so much for hanging out with me. I want to tell you, if you're not part of my Patreon community, you should be. I love what I do, and I love the ability to support you in your journey. And if you aren't part of my Patreon community, you're missing out. There's a lot of things going on internally. We have chat rooms for moms of babies with different ages. We have tons of fun things that we do on my Patreon page. So please come join me there. If not, thanks for letting me be on your favorite podcast. I hope your day is great. Thanks for watching, and I'm excited to see what you guys think.